Hello, and welcome to Everyone Dies, the podcast where we talk about serious illness, dying, death, and bereavement. I'm Marianne Matzo, a nurse practitioner, and I use my experience from working as a nurse for 45 years to help answer your questions about what happens at the end of life. The staff at Everyone Dies has taken a much-needed break this December, so we will be republishing some of our greatest hits with updated topical information as an introduction. This week, we're going to talk about how you know if you're aging well, followed by our podcast about living to 100. The Huffington Post recently published an article documenting what geriatricians say are indicators that someone is aging well. Let's see how well we're doing based on their advice. 1. You take time to learn new things. With age, the opportunities to learn new information may not present themselves, so we need to look for them. To continue to think clearly, we need to keep our brains strong and flexible to new information. We make opportunities to learn something new, like a new game, exercise, language, or a musical instrument. You don't have to be good at it, but then again, who knows what undiscovered talents you may have. 2. You're honest about your needs. People may not age well if they're not upfront about what their needs are. Ageism may make it easy for people to feel like a burden or invisible, which may result in silent suffering. But it's important to push against that and let folks know what you're having a tough time with. So if you're someone who can share your thoughts and needs with your family and friends, then that's a good sign. 3. You have a community. Loneliness and isolation are a big problem. So much so that the Surgeon General of the United States declared an epidemic of isolation and loneliness throughout the country. To combat feelings of loneliness and isolation, it's important to bolster your social connections, whether it's with friends, family, your church group, or your community. There isn't one right way to connect with your community. It could look like anything from volunteering at a local food bank to helping a neighborhood child learn to read. 4. Prioritize your physical health. Eating nutritious food and exercise are important all throughout your life, including when you reach an older age. Drinking plenty of water, low-sodium diet, following the Mediterranean diet is a well-studied meal plan that is full of whole grains, healthy fats, lean meat, and plant-based fruits. And keep exercising. When exercising, it's important to work on your muscle strength since muscle mass can be lost as you age. Lift weights, do Pilates, yoga, and Tai Chi can all be part of a good muscle-building exercise routine. Additionally, cardio fitness like walking, biking, swimming, and running are important for your good health. 5. You do things that you enjoy. It's not realistic to think that you'll never deal with an illness or an injury, but that doesn't mean you can't do things that you love to do, whether it's traveling, learning new recipes, or playing games with your family. Hobbies, volunteer work, and spending time with loved ones are all good ways to combat boredom. 6. You talk to your doctor about the medications you take. It's important to talk to your doctor about de-prescribing, taking you off any unnecessary medications. For example, if you were prescribed medication for stress when you were working in your 50s, you may not need it after you retire. 7. You plan for the future. It's important to talk to your family and friends about what you want to happen if you're hospitalized, if you fall, or if you experience memory loss. This way, your loved ones will be prepared for any unplanned, stressful situations. It's good to start this kind of planning when you retire. But it's also important to know that these plans may change as your life progresses, and that's okay. As plans change, it's crucial to keep the conversation going and inform your loved ones. If you need future planning advice or tips on how to talk to a loved one about these potentially stressful conversations, there's free future planning resources in Plan Your Lifespan. None of us know how much time we have on this earth, but we do have a lot of control over how we experience that time. So remember, every day is a gift and make the most of the time that you have. Now, let's listen to our podcast about living to 100.
This podcast does not provide medical advice. Please listen to the complete disclosure at the end of the recording.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everyone Dies, the podcast where we talk about serious illness, dying, death, and bereavement. I'm Marianne Matzo, a nurse practitioner, and I use my 43 years of nursing experience to help you understand what happens at the end of life.
I'm Charlie Navarrete, an actor in New York City, and here to ask questions you might have while listening to our broadcast. We are both here because we believe that the more you know, the better prepared you are to make difficult decisions. And let's face it, it's easier to make decisions when you are not under pressure.
So please relax. Get yourself some cheese and crackers, wine, a hot toddy, and thank you for spending the next hour with Charlie and me. We're dedicating this podcast to Betty White,
Absolutely.
who died on December 31st, just 2 weeks before her 100th birthday. Her entertainment career spanned more than 8 decades, from star turns on The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Golden Girls, to more recent roles in Hot in Cleveland and The Proposal. So, with 5 Emmys to her name, White holds the Guinness World Record for the longest TV career for a female entertainer. So, thank you for joining us for this show about being 100. In the first half, we have our recipe of the week from Charlie that includes the history of Cheez-Its, which are also 100. In the second half, we're going to talk about what it takes to live to be 100. And in the third half, Charlie has a report about what children think life would be like if they lived to be 100 years old. So, Charlie, have you seen the new HBO thing, the takeoff from Sex and the City?
The follow-up to it?
Have you seen that yet?
The follow-up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Crap. Yeah, and I say crap because I have not. No, not at all. No interest at all. No.
Well, I saw the reviews and I thought, well, those aren't very good reviews. And, Samantha's didn't come back for this.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And, but I thought, what the heck? I watched Sex and the City all those years. So I watched it, and then I thought, this was really pretty bold. Because, and, spoiler alert, I'm going to try not to give it a lot away, but in the very first episode, there's a major death. And the rest of the episodes, they deal with lots of other things, like Carrie's on a podcast and, why Samantha went away and, all a variety of different issues. But the theme throughout is this major death and grieving and growing old. They talk a lot about, we're 55. And, you don't see, especially given like the whole Sex and the City theme and what that was all about. I was just really surprised that they went down that road, that they are dealing with widowhood and sudden death and grieving and loss and what happens now. And I'm 55 and my back hurts and should I dye my hair and all these things that are very relevant to
Absolutely.
being, 55. So, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to ruin anything for anybody, but the reviews are such that I think they wanted more Sex of the City, and instead you have, they grew up.
Right.
And they're dealing with these issues now. They're dealing with different issues. It's not about sleeping around in shoes, although sex still plays a big part of it and shoes still play a big part of it. But I just would suggest to listeners and maybe you, Charles, to give it a try, because it takes you in a place where you I didn't expect them to go. And I'm really pleased that they went there, because I think it's an opportunity for people to learn about and to see these characters in this other part of their life.
Right.
So,
all right.
That's
Good.
what I have to say about that.
And it's a good thing to say. Yes.
Why, thank you. So, for the first half, Charles, what do you got?
Well, it is orange and square, the snack of our youth and adulthood. Cheez-Its, as you said, celebrates its 100-year birthday. Da-da-da.
I love Cheez-Its.
Yes.
Do you like Cheez-Its?
Actually, I do, yes. I don't know, just...
Have you tried the extra toasty ones?
I have not. What?
Oh, my God.
So what? They toast them twice or what?
So remember when, like every now and then you get like a real kind of brown toasty one and be like, ooh, those are so good. It's like the dark potato chips are a little bit too cooked.
Oh,
well,
yes.
They took that, ooh, we cooked it too much and made a whole box of, ooh, we cooked it too much.
Oh, really?
And they are called Toasty Cheez-Its, and they are so freaking good.
Huh. I'm going to have to look for those. No, I do know what you're talking about, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. They're good. So, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
You were saying?
So it's the 100th year birthday. Da, 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 da. So, going back to 1847, who would have thought?
Oh, wait. Happy birthday, Cheez-Its.
There you are.
I was just ringing my bell because I had an opportunity to ring it.
And...
and I don't like to pass up an opportunity to ring my bell.
To ring that bell, yeah, absolutely, yes.
All right, I'm going to be quiet
back in 1847, Dr. William Wolfe of Dayton, Ohio, determined his patients with dietary restrictions needed a different kind of food. So Dr. Wolfe created his own food, a hard butter cracker that became known as the Dayton cracker, made for medicinal purposes. Christian psychologists...
I've always thought that Cheez-Its were medicinal.
I'm
sorry.
You know what? You could really argue that you can make anything you want, into something medicinal. Not necessarily going to be true, but if in your mind it's medicinal, well, then, so be it.
Then therefore it is.
Yes.
Okay.
So Christian physiologists, not psychiatrists, Christian physiologists like Sylvester Graham of graham cracker fame were concerned about a modern diet that contained too many stimulating substances. In addition to being a cracker evangelist, Graham was also a pro-temperance Presbyterian minister who preached a vegetarian diet. Wolfe echoed Graham's concerns that food was far too rousing, though Graham also believed his... I wish I could just put this off like, well, it was the 1840s, but yeah, what goes around comes around. Now, I know when I've had White Castle, sometimes I think, gosh, these are just too rousing. I should not have a fourth or fifth one, but I throw caution to the wind.
Yes.
Yes.
Be aroused, Charles. Be aroused.
Exactly. So, yes, rousing. Though Graham also believed his crackers could cure promiscuous and unprincipled sexual matters.
Man, I got to get me a box.
Yeah. They believed there was too much nourishment per food unit in modern bread, too much excitement, says Haushofer. So they recommended grain products made from coarse flour, which they believed contained a more natural ratio of nourishing and non-nourishing parts. Crackers were considered health food, but Wolfe's patients weren't the only ones after his crackers. You can interpret that any way you wish. What started as a medical remedy soon became a sought-after treat. In the 1870s, while living in North Dakota, the Dayton natives J.W. and Weston Green often longed for a taste of home. Father and son regularly sent back to their old home city of Dayton for necessities, which included a good supply of the Wolfe cracker. In 1897...
Man, that really tells you something about how much they didn't have in North Dakota in 1870.
Do they?
But we love North Dakota.
Do they have much now? 100 years later. So in 18,
I gotta hope so.
Yes, in 1897, when Wolf died, Green purchased the Wolf Bakery Company, and his son joined him in business. The Greens renamed the enterprise Green and Green Company, and while Wolf's recipe remained the same, they rebranded the doctor's famous treat as the Dayton Cracker. Green and Green flourished, expanding its operations to nearby Springfield and Lima. Lima or Lima? You say potato, I say potato. And delivering.
I was going to say, isn't it Lima, Ohio?
I believe it is, actually. Yes. Yes.
We always said Lima.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
I just haven't used it in a long time.
Well, I mean, we as my family, but who knows? There's a lot of things wrong. Who knows?
So it's Lima, Ohio, but lima beans. Yes.
All spelled the same way.
Yes. And Lima, Peru, the capital. Right? Lima's the capital of Peru?
Right.
Yeah, close enough. And delivering baked goods across southwest Ohio. But soon, the company's crackers became more than a regional concern. During World War I, Green and Green fired up its ovens for the war effort. Though far less tasty than the Dayton Cracker, Dayton's fighting bread sustained countless soldiers during the Great War. Typically made from salt, the crackers, not the soldiers, flour and water, hard bread, also known as hardtack or teeth jawbreakers, was often soaked in water before being served. If stored improperly...
I never knew what hardtack was. I've heard people talk about hardtack, but I never knew what it was. Did you?
I remember it. I don't know. Maybe my father told me as a kid. But actually, yes, I knew it was basically you were biting into a piece of bread. You might as well be biting into a soft stone. Yeah, that it was just hard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Charlie, this is just so educational.
It really is. I'm being educated.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, sure. So, hardtack or teeth jawbreakers was often soaked in water before being served. Now, again, if stored improperly, weevils and maggots made hard bread their home, prompting soldiers to dub the wartime ration worm castles.
Oh.
Yum, yum. After World War I, Green and Green Company sidelined hard bread in favor of more flavorful food. By Armistice Day, the Dayton Cracker, still made with Wolf's original recipe, had been baked in Dayton for nearly 100 years. But while the hard bread butter, not bread butter, butter cracker, that's it, sorry. But while the hard butter cracker was a local treasure, because I know our listeners will be looking this up and say, wait a minute, that's not what Charlie said. And we'll get multiple letters, which actually then people hit
multiple letters,
hit likes and everything. Just gets us more responses. So I'm going to keep making these mistakes for you folks to look up and then like us. But I digress.
Sandy will be thrilled
She will
with
be
these
thrilled.
mistakes.
She will be
Charles. She'd be thrilled.
So the hard butter cracker was a local treasure. A lot of people said, let's bury it. No, just kidding. Was a local treasure, and customers yearned for a delicate, flakier treat. Soon, Green and Green launched its Edgemont line, and in 1921 unveiled the baked rarebit, known as the Cheez-It Welsh Rarebit. Yes, at its most basic form, it's essentially a cheese sauce spread on toast. In some 19th century...
Oh, Welsh rarebit. Well, wait. Welsh rarebit.
Rarebit.
Is cheese
spread
on toast?
No, but Cheez-It Welsh rarebit. So it's not the Welsh...
Cheez-It.
Welsh...
There's a period. There's a period after Cheez-It.
Yeah.
Welsh rarebit is a whole other story.
Right.
They didn't call Cheez-Its Welsh rarebit, did they?
That's what I read, that it was known as Cheez-It Welsh rarebit. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll be darned. I know this is number 3 thing I've learned today. I think I need to go back to bed. I'm exhausted.
Beep, 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 beep. So yeah, and again, at its most basic form, it is essentially a cheese sauce spread on toast. Some 19th century English recipes specifically call for cheddar cheese. And to this day, Cheez-It still advertises 100% real cheese, which draws a connection to its rarebit roots. These rectangular baked crackers are made from cheese, wheat flour, paprika, and other secret ingredients. I'll never talk. The cheesy taste and orange color are 2 of the hallmarks that give Cheez-It its name. By 1932, Green & Green packed up its last family tin of Cheez-It and sold the business to Kansas City's Loose Wiles Biscuit Company. I love that name, Loose Wiles. So, Loose Wiles Biscuit.
Must have been Mr. Loose and Mr. Wiles.
There we are.
Right?
Yes.
Because in those days, it weren't the women.
Nope. In 1947, the Loose Wiles became the Sunshine Biscuit Company. In 1996, Keebler acquired Sunshine. And in 2001, Kellogg acquired Keebler. So.
Wow.
You can make your own cheese crackers. So now what?
So now, I'm just trying to follow this. So now Kellogg owns Cheez-Its.
Yes.
Correct?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And the little elves.
I'm a little slow, so
No,
give me
not at all.
Catch up.
So yeah, so Kellogg owns both Cheez-Its and the Keebler elves.
Oh.
Keebler. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone.
All right. I wondered what happened to the elves. Yeah, okay. So they live with Mr. Kellogg now up in
the trees.
Up in Battle Creek?
Yep, Battle Creek in the trees. Yes.
Okay.
You can make your own cheese crackers, or as they are known in the South, cheese straws, with the recipe on our webpage. And folks, please go to that webpage for the recipe and additional resources for this program. Please follow us. Don't stalk us, on Facebook and Instagram, and remember to rate and review this podcast. As a licensed nonprofit organization, we are dependent on the kindness of our beloved listeners and always appreciate your donations, which, by the way, are tax deductible. Please go to our webpage to donate in support of our work. www.everyonedies.org. That's every the number 1 dies.org. Marianne?
Thanks for that, Charles. So in keeping with our Centurion theme, we're going to talk about how could you live, what do you have to do to live to be 100? So the world
martini was and like George Burns, martini or 2 a day and a cigar.
Actually, there is some data to suggest that having consistent habits, even if they're considered quote unquote bad for you, are actually good for you in terms of living to 100. So maybe you have something there. But the world was home to nearly 500,000 centurions. These are people over the age of 100 in 2015. More than 4 times as many as there were in 1990, according to the United Nations estimates. And this growth is expected to accelerate. Projections suggest that there will be 3.7 million centurions across the globe in 2050. Now, that's still a really pretty small percentage of the population, but it's not something that we've ever seen. And if you look back, even, the last couple of weeks in terms of famous people who've died, they've all been over, 95 years old.
Yeah. Poitier was 94.
Just died. What was
Joan Didion? Well, she was 91 or 92. Of course, Betty White, a couple weeks shy of 100. Yeah.
Right. But there's, you see, it's like, oh my God, they're 90 this, 90 that. And that's the new trend. 100 is the new 80.
The new 80,
things are changing in terms of our population. And while most of us can expect to live to be about 80, some people define expectations and live to be over 100. In places like Okinawa, Japan, and Sardinia, Italy, there are many centurions. The oldest person in history was a French woman named Jeanne Calment, and she lived to 122 years. When she was born in 1875, the average life expectancy was roughly 43. Now, part of the issue with somebody like Jean and, people are, I'm 122, I'm 115, whatever, is that when they were born, records weren't what they were like when we were born in terms of really good documentation. So it could be that she died at 122, or it could be that because of the record keeping, she was a little bit younger than that. But whatever, she was still over 100 years old. But just how long can humans actually live? It's a question that people have really been asking for centuries. Well, average life expectancy, which is the number of years a person can expect to live, is relatively easy to calculate. And we also have a show that we did about that. So the link for that is on the website if you want to go learn about life expectancy. The maximum lifespan estimates, which is the greatest age a human could possibly reach, are much harder to make. Previous studies have placed this limit close to about 140 years of age, but a more recent study proposes that the limit to the human lifespan is closer to 150.
What?
And I'm going to tell you about this study in a minute, but let me talk a little bit more about calculating lifespan.
Yeah.
The oldest and most widely used method for calculating lifespan is the Gompertz equation.
The what?
Now, this is it's called the Gompertz equation.
Okay.
This is the observation first made in the 19th century that human death rates from disease increase with time. Essentially, this means that your chance of death from cancer, heart disease, infections, for example, roughly doubles every 8 to 9 years. So this formula can be adjusted to account for how different factors, such as gender or disease, can affect the lifespan within a population. Gompertz calculations are also used to calculate health insurance premiums, which is why these companies are so interested in whether you smoke, whether you're married, or anything else that might allow them to more accurately judge the age that you're going to die. And the reason health insurance want to know this is because they want to have their rates be high enough so that they are going to make money on health insurance.
Right, of course.
And that's like, Social Security was set at 65 because back in the day when it was set at 65 was people thought their lifespan was supposed to be about age 63. So they figured, well, if we set the Social Security benefit at 65, most of the people will be dead and they won't claim it. And
right,
we won't have to pay out the benefit.
Yeah.
Right. But our generation is fixing that. Because
Yep.
even though they've very slowly raised that Social Security benefit, it's, I think for us now it's like 67. It's still not enough because we are going to just shoot the moon with all that. But anyway, I digress. So a different way to calculate how long we can live is to look at how our organs decline with age and run that rate of decline against the age at which they stop working. For example, eye function and how much oxygen we use while exercising can show a general pattern of decline with aging, with studies calculating that organs will only function until the average person is around 120 years old. Now, these studies also document variation between people as they grow older. For example, some people's kidney function declines rapidly with age, while others, it hardly changes at all. So, back to that study I was telling you about. Research in Singapore and Russia and the United States have taken a different approach to estimate the maximum human lifespan. And so what they did is they developed a computer model, and they estimated that the limit of human lifespan is about 150 years. So these researchers hypothesize that there could be a relationship between your chance of death and how rapidly and completely you recover from illness. So what they're talking about is really your ability to maintain homeostasis, your normal physiological equilibrium or evenness. Or another way to think about it is your resilience. How well are you able to recover if you get an illness, if you have a surgery? Are you the kind of person who they can cut into you and in 2 weeks you're up and around and you're recovered? Or are you somebody who is in the hospital for a month and then has to go to rehab and it takes, 3 months for you to come back? So that's looking at resilience. In fact, aging can be defined as the loss of the ability to maintain homeostasis. Typically, the younger the person is, the better they are at recovering rapidly from illness. So this study that was done, and I have the link for the citation for you in our show notes if you want to take and look it up and read about it. This study was done what's called a modeling study, which is the process that assigns relational rules to data. Like if A happens, what happens to B? How do those things relate? A data model sort of uncomplicates data into useful information that researchers can then use for decision making and strategy. So they can say, I want to know, how does this relate to that and what happens? So what the researchers did is they took blood samples from over 70,000 participants up to age 85. So people of all ages up to age 85. And looked at short-term changes in their blood cell counts, their CBC, the complete blood count, which whenever you have blood drawn, they always draw a CBC. The number of white blood cells a person has can indicate the level of inflammation or disease in the body, while the volume of red blood cells can indicate a person's risk of heart disease or stroke or cognitive impairment, such as memory loss. The researchers then simplified this data into a single parameter, which they called the DOSI indicator, and it stands for the Dynamic Organisms State Indicator, DOSI, D-O-S-I. So changes in the DOSI values across the participants predicted who would get age-related disease, how this varied from person to person, and then they modeled the loss of resilience with age. So they don't actually have people who live to 150 to say, oh, okay, here's what happens. No, they used computer modeling from the data of those 70,000 people to then predict out what was going to happen. So these calculations predicted that for everyone, regardless of their health or their genetics, resiliency failed completely at age 150, which established a theoretical limit to the human lifespan. But, Charlie, estimates of this type assume that nothing new will be done to the population, such as no new medical treatments will be found for common diseases. Is assuming that as of right now, everything's going to be the same. And the model that says that our body will die at, cannot go past 150 is true. But this is a major flaw since significant progress occurs over a lifetime. And this can benefit many people, although it'll benefit some people more than others. For example, if you had a baby who was born today, they can rely on about 85 years of medical progress to enhance their life expectancy. While if you were 85-year-old now, there's a limit of the current medical technologies and how much of an advantage it's going to be for you. So for us, not that we're 85, but we're getting there. We wouldn't benefit. But if a child was born today, they would benefit. So as such, the calculation used by these researchers will be relatively accurate for old people, but will become progressively less so the younger the person is that you're looking at. Now, the DOSI limit for maximum lifespan is about 25% longer than what had been previously predicted. So how long are you going to live? Is there a way that you could find that out? Well, not conclusively, but there are aging calculators that can predict based on your lifestyle and your family history how long you're going to live. Now, I put in a link to one in our show notes so that you can go through it. It's computer-based, so you answer the questions, and then it calculates how long you're going to live. I did 2 of them. One said I was going to live to, 95, and the other one said I would live to 100. Now, but there are things like one question is, have you had a car accident? Have you had a speeding ticket? So all you have to do is, go driving and get a speeding ticket, and your life expectancy, you lose a couple of years there, because those are factors that can impact how long you're going to live.
Okay, but I know I'm trying to remember. I was somewhere in my mid-20s, and I got a speeding ticket. That's like, let's say approximately 40 years ago. I have not gotten a speeding ticket since. So does
No. It's based on the time that you take the test. So if you sat down and took the test today, one of the questions, depends on which one you take, is have you had a speeding ticket in the last 3 years?
Got it. Okay, then I'll pass, because I ain't got a parking ticket in the past 3 years.
Because you live in New York and you don't drive.
Oh, hell
but
yeah.
that's
Who would drive in this city? But many people do.
Okay. So go on the website, click on that link, and, see how long you're going to live, and write to us. Let us know. If you're going to be around a while, we'll keep doing this, right,
Yes,
Charlie?
we will.
Sure. But, anyway. So what do you need to live?
Are you asking
to be 100?
me?
Well,
sorry, it's a rhetorical question.
No, I'm going to tell you.
Very good.
I'm going to tell you. I can give you like 4 important things, but there's probably a heck of a lot more than that. I can't swear. Sandy will get mad at me. So first, you need to have good genes. It's your genetics. It's what you got from mom and dad and everybody who came before you. You have no control over this. But if you have good genetics, it's going to set you up to live a long life. Now, whether or not you do is going to depend on what you do with those genetics. So the second thing that can help you is an excellent diet and exercise plan, which can add up to 15 years to your life expectancy. So we have a podcast about exercise. You take a listen to that. Not everybody, but a lot of people really don't want to hear that diet and exercise make a difference, but it does. Fruits and vegetables, one of the questions in those calculators is asks you about your diet. Do you eat fruits and vegetables every day? Do you eat processed food? I mean, just reading the questionnaire lets you know what's going to impact your health or not. But red wine is also good for you. Everything in moderation. Red wine's great. The third factor is a healthy environment and good mental health. This includes having a community, having a family, having a positive attitude. That goes a long way for living well. And, Charles?
Well, when you mentioned community and family, I know, here in New York, I have a lot of friends who were not born here. So their families in other parts of the country, but it's just what you said about community. You just create your own family. You create your own community.
And I'm not, when I say family, I'm not talking about blood relatives, because
exactly.
That might not be the healthiest thing for you.
Yeah.
Who knows? It depends on your relatives. But you can create a family.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be related by blood to have sisters and brothers that you designate that you care
absolutely.
about, or
look at
older people that look out for you.
Look at the Avengers. I mean, you had Iron Man and Captain America, allies at first, and then they weren't allies, and then of course the big blip, and half the planet disappeared for 5 years, and then everyone got back together, and they knew they had to work together. There's a perfect example right there, Marianne. Thank you.
Perfect. And lastly, a breakthrough in turning our knowledge of the biology of aging into treatments in medicine can increase healthy lifespan. Now, all throughout history, there have been inventions, things that have been found that have been able to have an impact on how long that we can live. And we can talk about the different treatments in medicine that are specifically being developed to increase lifespan at a later show. So stay tuned for that. But it's important to note that we're not going to live to 100 if we die at a younger age. Now, I know, obviously, if you're dead, you're not going to live to 100. But hear me out here, Charlie.
Okay.
If there's things that we can do so that we don't die, then we have a greater chance of living to 100. Like if you don't cross through traffic all the time and you watch, the signals, you have less chance of being hit by a car. If you use antibiotics, for example, that, before antibiotics, people died all the time of really basic infections that nowadays are not going to kill us because we have antibiotics. So there's an invention that because it existed, people didn't die young, and then they had the opportunity to grow old. Things like vaccines, the polio vaccine and the pneumonia vaccine and the flu vaccine and the COVID vaccine. These are things that have been created so that if we take them and we become, activate our immunity within our bodies, we're not going to die from those diseases and therefore have the opportunity to grow old. So we've talked many times about the value of vaccines and of preventing death from these diseases, like pneumonia, flu, COVID. So take advantage of what science has to offer to increase your chances of living to 100. So even given the current pace of progress, we can confidently expect life expectancy to increase because it's been doing so ever since Gompertz and his calculation was alive in the 1860s. In fact, as you're spending 30 minutes listening to this podcast, average life expectancy will have increased by 6 minutes. Unfortunately, at this rate, the average person won't live to 150 for another 3 centuries.
Huh. Something to look forward to.
But,
okay.
Right. So what did Betty White have to say about living to 100? And I kind of dug back in various interviews where she reported that she was still indulging in hot dogs and vodka,
right.
that she loved French fries and potato chips, that she drank Diet Coke and liked to snack on Red Vine's licorice. And Betty, wherever you are, I'm right with you on all those things. But she also said that a positive attitude was most important. In Parade magazine in 2017, right before turning 96, she said, "I know it sounds corny, but I try to see the funny side and the upside, not the downside." She said, "I get bored with people who complain about this or that. It's such a waste of time. Accentuate the positive, not the negative." In an interview before her 98th birthday, she said that she walked a mile a day. She is a person who is adored by her fans, had 3 husbands, and the last being Alan Ludden, who was the love of her life. On December 29th, 2 days before what?
No, it's funny you say about Alan Ludden because I know because I remember reading.
So you guys can't see this, but Charlie's like waving his fingers.
I got something to say. What? I want to talk here. I'm talking here, and also you're. I'm
talking about Alan Ludden here. What?
And also when you said the thing about you can expand your life by not running across the street in the middle of traffic. And immediately I thought of the great New York adage, "Hey, I'm walking here, no matter the traffic." But I read a couple of reports saying that when Betty White died, that her last word was Alan.
I had read that too.
Yeah. I don't know if it's true, but it would be nice if, yeah.
It'd be nice if it was true.
I'm sorry. So what did I interrupt?
So what was I saying? So on December 29th, 2 days before her death, Betty White was asked by E.T. about her thoughts about turning 100.
Extraterrestrial?
Yeah. In this interview, she said, quote, "I'm amazed. No, seriously, I'm the luckiest broad on 2 feet to be as healthy as I am and to feel as good as I do." And they asked Betty, what's your big birthday wish for turning 100? She said, Robert Redford.
Yeah.
and if you read the quotes and things about Betty, she reported that she had a crush on Robert Redford for a really long time. She said that they had never met. We do know he's 20 years younger than her, but every year for her birthday, she asked for Robert Redford. Again, Betty, I'm with you. Of course, I don't know that I want really the 80-year-old Robert Redford, but the 40-year-old Robert
there
Redford.
We are. Yes.
You know, Bob, call me.
Yes. Yeah.
Call me. Her publisher, Betty's publisher, did give an interview where he said, people are saying her death was related to getting a booster, COVID booster, 3 days earlier.
Crap that is. Yeah.
But that is not true. She died of natural causes. Her death should not be politicized. That was not the life she lived. So that's from her publicist. Betty was once asked if heaven existed, and what would she like God to say to her when she walked through pearly gates? To which she replied, "Come on in, Betty. Here's Alan."
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
So, Charlie, what do you have for our third half?
Well, for our third half, some teachers use the 100th day of school to give a writing assignment asking children to respond to the writing prompt, "When I am 100 years old." So we thought we'd share some of these responses with you.
Oh, this will be good.
So the first kid said, "When I am 100 years old, I would have gray hair. Me and my husband would chase the kids off the lawn." When I am 100 years old, I would have gray hair. Me and my husband would chase the kids off the lawn. My garden would be beautiful. I will have a weird voice. I will live in an apartment. The next kid. When I'm 100 years old, I hope I am still alive. Still. Next. I will be grouchy that no one will visit me. Now that's sad. That's sad, right? Yes. The next child. When I am 100 years old, I will need a seeing eye dog to help me. Next.
That's a good excuse to get a dog.
Next. I will be a grandmother and I will tell all of my grandchildren all of my awesome stories.
Oh, I like that.
When I am 100, I will have a wheelchair with flames that goes 100 miles per hour. When I am 100 years old, I will still ride a motorcycle, have gray hair, be a retired United States Marine Corps soldier, live alone, watch TV, and use Rogaine.
At least he's not using Viagra.
How does a kid know about Rogaine? But good.
Television commercials, dude.
When I turn 100 years old, I will be tired of everything and everyone. So I will tell everyone I'm going to Canada, but actually go to the Bahamas. I will live in a tiny hut with my tiny dog. I will order fish tacos when I am hungry and live my best life with no crap.
Did you write this, Charlie?
I did not, but there is.
Could have.
You know what? Yeah, what am I saying? Of course I could have. Yes. Except for the fish taco things, because you really need something to wash those bad boys down with. So, next. What am I doing? Oh, I forgot my glasses. Next. I'm going to be ugly. Super ugly. Next. No animal will go near me because I will smell gross like cows. People may not like me because when some people call me, I will yell at them.
Well, I have that issue already.
When I am 100 years old, I will gamble.
God.
When I am 100 years old, I will go see an amazing rainbow. Me and the rainbow will jump on fluffy white clouds.
Man, I wonder what drugs she's
I was just
planning on
thinking,
using.
I remember something like this back in the 70s. And the last one, I will rest in a chair.
You know, Charlie,
Yes.
I got to tell you,
What?
this really freaking annoys
What?
me. You know, I'm a gerontologist, right? So just like I want people to find some comfort and peace with their mortality, I really would like people to find some comfort and peace with growing old.
Yes.
And what are these kids learning? Or what are they seeing? Or why are they thinking that they're going to smell gross like cows or, you know, live in we need to do better.
Absolutely.
Better.
I mean, look at still the image of older people or aging people. I mean, how many times have you heard, "Wow, you look great for your age"? Like, what do you mean for my age? What
do you expect me to look like?
Yeah. And this wonderful woman, Ashton Applewhite, she's just everything about aging, you know, for her, you know, and basically what she created, she didn't create it, but she's popularized the word ageism. You know, and when someone says that to Ashton, her first response is, "Hey, you know what? You look good for your age too." It's just she just yeah. This image just persists. You know,
well, let's not perpetuate it. And teachers that are listening, you know, think about it. I think the prompt of what are you going to live, what are you going to be like when you're 100, or I'll live to 100, and use that as a writing prompt is not a problem. But if you look at some of the, I don't know if I should call it art, but the papers that they hand out, they have, you know, old people with gray hair,
right, exactly.
You know, in pajamas and little, you know, hats on. It's like, that's not how old people look.
Right.
I don't know if they ever did, but they sure in heck don't look that way now. They look like us.
Know, and again,
let's not
go ahead.
do this.
Yes. Yeah. You know, perpetuate the stereotype. You know, we don't put up with racism. Well, most of us don't put up with racism. Why do we put up with ageism? You know, we don't.
Yeah, because we don't. We need to start calling that out and saying, no, that's not okay, because we want these kids. I want the future generation to grow up to have a healthy view of aging, a healthy view of life, a healthy view of death, and not be afraid of things, and not be afraid of things that are absolutely normal and not in your control. Right. People always say, "Oh my God, I don't want to grow old," and it's like, dude, it baits the alternative, because if you don't grow old, then you're going to die young. So grow old gracefully, be glad and thank your stars you've got it, and shut the heck up.
Exactly. You know, we tolerate racism far less now.
That's the grumpy Marianne.
That's good. We tolerate sexism less. We need to tolerate ageism less. It's nuts. Moving on. We are asking our listeners to join us in the Betty White Challenge, a social media campaign that is meant to promote animal care while remembering Betty White. The Betty White Challenge asks the participants to pick a local rescue or animal shelter in your area and donate $5 in her name. The challenge is set to take place on January 17th, 2022, which would have been White's 100th birthday. Make her 100th birthday special in honor of a cause he was so passionate about. You can find more information at #BettyWhiteChallenge.
And if you guys are participating, and I hope you do, put a note on your Facebook page, do #BettyWhiteChallenge and #EveryoneDies, so that we know that you did it. And Charlie and I are going to do it. And let's honor Betty White because she seems like she's a pretty cool lady. She was a great actress and had cute dimples.
Yes. And that's it for this episode. Please stay tuned for the continuing saga of Everyone Dies. And thank you for listening. I mentioned the late Joan Didion earlier, and the first 4 lines of Didion's book, The Year of Magical Thinking, chronicles her grief after her husband and writer John Gregory Dunn had a heart attack at the dinner table and died. And the first 3 lines read, life changes fast. Life changes in the instant. You sit down to dinner and life as you know it ends. This is Charlie Navarrete.
And I'm Marianne Matzo, and we'll see you next week. Remember, man plans and God laughs, and every day is a gift. See you soon.
Bye.
Goodbye.
This podcast does not provide medical advice. All discussion on this podcast, such as treatments, dosages, outcomes, charts, patient profiles, advice, messages, and any other discussion are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your primary care practitioner or other qualified health providers with any questions that you may have regarding your health. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard from this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. Everyone Dies does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, practitioners, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in this podcast. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast by persons appearing on this podcast at the invitation of Everyone Dies or by other members is solely at your own risk.